Shalom, my name is Joseph Shulam, and I'm continuing with Mind Candy. Today I'm going to talk about two things. One is the parable from Matthew 13, the parable of the sower that sowed seed, good seed, and the seed fell on four grounds. But before I get into the parable, I want to talk about the Passover Haggadah, the Passover service that we do at home and have the Passover meal. And it is always a big celebration for, I would say, probably a very, very high percentage of Jews around the world, whether they're religious or not religious, whether they keep kosher, they don't keep kosher, they keep the Sabbath, they don't keep the... Most Jews celebrate the Passover. And they celebrate the Passover with what we call the Haggadah, the story of the Passover. And it starts with the question of the children that sing, "What's different tonight from any other night?" And with the invitation for the poor and for the strangers to join. Yeah, anybody who wants to is welcome to join. And then comes this text that talks about four sons. There are four sons. Very ancient text. The first son is the wise one. The second son is the evil son, the bad son. The third son is the innocent son. And the fourth son is not so innocent because he doesn't even know what question to ask. He's a little bit slow. I would say today in our language, a little bit autistic. And these four sons, and what the Passover story brings us with the story of these four sons is the ancient Hebrew paradigm of how to look at the humanity, at ourselves, and at those around us. It's a very, very important difference from the Greco-Roman Western concept of society, of community, of responsibility, and of participation. Let's do first the parable of Jesus from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, and from verse 24. Jesus starts with, like most of his parables, the kingdom of heaven is like unto. It describes something that's connected to the kingdom of heaven. Like a man who sowed good seed in the field. This phrase repeats itself several times in the parables of Jesus. Somebody sows a good seed. In fact, the previous parable of the bad seed that was sown by the enemy, seed of tares, in between the good seed of the wheat, also starts, there was a sower that sowed good seed in the field, in his field. And that sower that had good seed sowed it freely, not with a machine, not with a modern equipment. That sower sowed, and when he cast his hand with the seed out of the bag that was on his shoulder, the seed fell on different parts of the field. The seed fell on good ground. It fell on the pathway, which is not good ground because it's stumped down and it's hard. And it fell between the weeds, and it fell on ground that is shallow, is rocky under it. You see that you don't see the rock, but doesn't have any depth that will give the seed room to germinate and grow and produce fruit. So, we have 4 types of soil. If I ask the Christian, the average Protestant or Catholic or Greek Orthodox or Ethiopian Coptic Christian to classify these 4 grounds that all receive seeds, most likely will say the only good ground, innocent ground, would be the one that was good ground, that the seed fell in, got watered, germinated, and brought 100-fold of wheat. From one seed of wheat, it brought 100 times more wheat. That's the good ground. What about the rest? Oh, they're no good. They're not beneficial. Why? Because one was bad because the seed didn't even penetrate the ground. It was on the path that was stomped by people, by animals, and hardened. The second one fell among the thorns. The thorns choked it, prevented the sun from getting to the seed. And no crop came out of that seed. And the other one fell on the rocky ground. It tried. It started to grow, but the sun was strong and there was not enough depth of the ground and enough water under it because of the rock under it. And that also didn't bring any fruit. So the only good thing is the one that gave 100-fold of crop. That's the only good. All right. That's how Christians interpret that parable. That's not how Jews interpret that parable. In order to understand it, I would like to go to a very ancient Jewish literature. It's a homily, a midrashic literature. It's called Mechilta of Rabbi Ishmael, a first century rabbi, contemporary with Paul for sure, maybe even with Jesus. So there were 4 sons, a wise son, a wicked son, a simple son, and one who does not know how to ask. What does the wise son say? What are these testimonies and these statutes and these judgments that the Lord our God commands us? In other words, the wise son wants to know more than what he is getting on the surface of the text. He wants to dig in. He wants to understand. He wants to practice. And you, the father in this case, open this question of the wise son up and tell him the Passover rules that the Torah gives us. What should we do on the Passover? And instruct him not to stop asking, not to stop inquiring, and not to eat the dessert until the afikoman, the hidden matzah, which symbolizes the Messiah, is found. Keep investigating. As we read in Exodus chapter 12, verse 26, that God tells the children of Israel, You do these things that I command you, so that your children will ask you, what is this that we're doing in the Passover? What is this service for about? So, that's the wise man. The wise man is the guy who is interested in what's going on, wants to dig in and continue to study and to investigate and to understand God and how He works and what does the Passover really mean in practice and in theory, in ideas. The wicked son comes next. He asks also a question. What is this Passover service? What does it mean to you guys? The difference between the wise and the wicked son is one. Both of them ask the same question. The wicked son asks, what does it mean to you, but not to me? The wise son says, what does it mean to me? I want to be involved personally in the story of the Passover. I want to experience it. The wicked son takes himself out of the picture. He says, this is your problem, not my problem. This is something that is involving you and not me. He has a question, same question, but takes himself out of the picture. The disassociation of himself from the congregation, from the community, denies his own foundation of faith. And what the Father is telling him as a result of that is, in the Hebrew it says, blunt his teeth and tell him, in other words, shut his mouth and tell him, because of this, that you have taken yourself out of the picture, in spite of the fact that you experienced the Exodus, in spite of the fact that you went out of Egypt, then you are going to see it and not enjoy it, not have a part of it. And you will not be redeemed. The son that is simple, innocent, not guilty, what does it say? What are these testimonies? What are these statutes? Yeah. What is it to me? How can I understand them? How can I deal with them? He doesn't have the strength that the wise one does to want to do something about it, but he's there. And now it is your responsibility as the father, as the community, as the family, to help him. He wants help. He doesn't have the tools to discover that help by himself or to practice it by himself, but you help him. And he will be redeemed out of Egypt because of his innocence. He will be redeemed out of Egypt because he wants to be redeemed, although he doesn't have the tools to be redeemed by himself. The fourth son is the one who doesn't know how to ask even. He doesn't have enough sense to ask the right question. And it is your responsibility to encourage him, to tell him simply, God saved us and our household from slavery and given us his freedom. That's the best you can do. That's the best he can understand. Not the precepts and the commandments and all the rules and regulations, but simply you open it up to him. You give him the basic. It's your responsibility. Now, again, there's 4 sons. There's 4 soils. The first thing I want to say is this. The Bible and our faith and our paradigm of society is not divided into black and white, good and evil. It is more like the bell curve. The bell curve that goes up and down, and the majority of the people are on the side of the bell curve, not on top of it, and not in the bottom of it, but on the sides. The same thing is with the parable of Yeshua in the 4 soils. One is 100%, it gives you a crop, fell on the good ground, good seed, fell on the good ground, brought you 100-fold fruit, produce. The other one gave you nothing. That's the evil son. Yeah, he's not going to enjoy the deliverance from Egypt. And that seed that fell on the hard ground has no fruit. Didn't even try, because it couldn't even penetrate the ground. Didn't want to penetrate the ground. The one that fell on the thorns wanted to, but couldn't, because the thorns choked him. Choked his life. Didn't allow him. This is the guy, the third guy, that was innocent. He started to grow, started to germinate, wanted to grow, wanted to produce, but the circumstances around him was such that he couldn't. So he's medium. He is not evil. That's the difference between this biblical paradigm and the Jewish paradigm with the Christian paradigm, that everything is either white or black. No, life is more complicated. Our society is more complicated. Our congregations are more, our families are more complicated. Sometimes if you have a lot of children, some of them are innocent, some of them are wise, some of them are not wise, are evil, and some of them are simply simpletons, a little bit slow. But God is the God of all of them. The sower sowed the good seed in all these, and there's no blame on any one of them. The parable doesn't blame any one of them. It just describes a reality that we all have to accept in our congregations and sometimes in our own families. And we're not the judges of any one of them, not of the one that gave 100-fold, not of the one that gave nothing, because we are not the sowers, we are the soils. And this is mind candy. Because if we learn this simple, basic truth that connects rabbinical Judaism and Pharisaic tradition with the words of Yeshua and the Passover, then we'll be better people. We'll get along better with the community, with the wise and with the wicked, and with the one that doesn't know how to ask, and with the one that is simply innocent person, simple person, that wants to do right, but sometimes illness, sometimes circumstance, sometimes other things prevent him, like the weeds, the thorns that choked the seed and didn't allow him to germinate and produce fruit, although he wanted to and he tried to. May God bless us all and teach us how to analyze and accept and know how to help each other, so that all of us will share the blessings of God. Shalom from Jerusalem. God bless you all.